Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SourceForge Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Bo Hamilton, Senior Editor and Multimedia Producer here at SourceForge, the world's most visited software comparison site where B2B software buyers compare and find business software solutions. Today, we're talking with Cameron Sutter, founder and CTO of Plottr, a visual outlining software that helps writers organize their thoughts and ideas, making it super easy to arrange and rearrange scenes, plots, character arcs, and more. With NaNoWriMo fast approaching, that's the National Novel Writing Month in November. This is an app I think you're really going to want to seriously consider if you are a writer and you are planning on participating. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself, as I typically do with these introductions. So to talk more about Plottr and how this all works, let me introduce Cameron Sutter. Cameron, welcome to the podcast. Glad you could join us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us an overview of Plottr?
Yeah, let's see. I've been writing and telling stories on and off my whole life. I'm a software engineer by trade. And so I just kind of found a way to marry those two passions of mine. It started out as just kind of a side project for myself. Just as I was writing, I just didn't love my process. My notes were kind of all over the place. And so I started thinking, what would be my perfect tool? Because I was trying all sorts of different tools out there. Like I was trying spreadsheets, I was trying Google Docs, I was trying Scrivener, and I still do use Scrivener, but just none of them were what I saw in my head of this visual way to see the threads of your story weaving together. It feels like there should be a way to see that, because there's lots of things going on in a story. And so because of that, I was like, well, I'm just going to start building it myself. And it was just for me. And then it started spreading slowly. Other people saw it, and I put it on a couple forums and got a couple hundred, beta testers. And then over the years, it just started growing. And so then in 2020, I was able to quit my job and live off savings for a little while with my wife and kids, which was a little scary, but we're able to, make that my full-time job. And I've been doing that since. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, that's awesome. That's cool. Yeah, I was going to ask. So you've always been kind of an avid storyteller and book nerd, and you saw this missing void for an app like Plottr in the marketplace. So you just noticed that there was some features missing, perhaps, that you wanted to kind of incorporate into your own software solution, or how did that come to light?
Yeah, it just didn't feel like there was anything that matched the way I was thinking of stories. There's multiple threads of a story, and it's not just like your main plot that you need to figure out, and outlining it is boring. Nobody likes doing that. And trying to read 100,000 words or even 50,000 words to be able to see the story in all the threads of it just was not working. It just didn't seem like the right way to do it. And so in my mind, I just saw like, okay, there's multiple threads of a story. There's got to be a way to plan each one of those threads individually and just see it visually. And so, yeah, that this is what came out of that kind of exploration.
Yeah, that's huge. Having that visual interface and the right features is really important. We're definitely going to talk about user interface a little bit later on. I want to just ask kind of broadly, what are some of the integrated technologies you have in Plottr? Like what kind of features and technologies have you integrated into the software to kind of help enhance the visual outlining and plotting experience for users?
Yeah. So to kind of explain that, I didn't really give a great overview of what Plottr is. I said how I came about it, but you can think of it like digital sticky notes on a storyboard, kind of. So it's almost like a user-friendly, colorful spreadsheet, but it's all drag and drop, and you can move things around. And so if any listener or any writers are listening, if you've ever tried to put index cards on your wall or sticky notes or use a whiteboard or something, this is kind of the digital equivalent of that. So you can see the different plot lines or character arcs individually. And so to answer your question about the technologies, it's really just web technologies. There's not any like super secret technology that we're using that most websites don't already use. It's really the thought and design that goes into the user experience. and making sure one, it's easy for writers because writers on the whole, we're not technical people. I think I'm probably an exception, but so making it easy for writers and making it just intuitive and kind of work the way our brain works, kind of.
Yeah. No, I like the kind of visual of the sticky notes and being able to drag and drop because as somebody who, I mean, I've got notepads right on my desk here. I got sticky pads. I'm constantly writing things around. I always misplace my sticky notes, but usually I have them like pasted around just with random notes and sometimes quotes and passwords and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, having that flexibility on a visual or a software kind of canvas is great. Now, as far as so I kind of want to talk about the competition, kind of going back with the missing void that you noticed in the marketplace. Now, so I used to highlight like my favorite new iOS and Android apps each month on YouTube. I used to make, I still make videos, but I was making a bunch of YouTube app videos. I did this for years, and it seemed like there was every month there'd be a new note-taking application or journaling app with its own unique design, claiming to be like the best at what it does, whether that's like simplicity, being distraction-free, being feature rich, incorporating nowadays it's AI and third party cloud support. Plottr isn't a mobile application, nor is it simply designed around taking notes. It's much more than that. But I imagine it occupies its own niche within the competitive landscape of writing software and storytelling tools. So I guess my question is, how does Plottr differentiate itself from the competition and stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is a lot of writing software out there for sure. And most of the writing software that we see is mostly focused on writing the manuscript of your story. Or it's on like world building and being able to build cultures and languages and maps and things like that. Whereas Plottr is kind of sandwiched in the middle of those, where we're not trying to, the intent is not that you write your book in Plottr. And it's not that you can dive deep and build these incredible worlds with fantastical creatures and things like that. Although lots of people do use it for that, to build out their worlds and things. But it's more trying to be really good at a few small things and not trying to do everything for the writer. And those few small things are seeing your story in a different way and more like a high level picture of the story, instead of the prose of your manuscript, the story of it, and what's called a series Bible. And so a series Bible is all those little details, all those little notes about all your characters. This one has blue eyes, this one has a dog, those kind of things, keeping all those details in one organized place. Because for writers, when you're writing book 3, book 10 in a series, man, you're not going to be able to remember all those details. And so many writers that we talk to say that their readers will email them and say, why'd you change the eye color of this obscure side character in book 1? That was my favorite character. Why'd you do that? Or my favorite one is this lady kept changing the gender of a dog from book to book to book because she couldn't remember what it was. So it just kept changing. And her readers will email her in and say that. So keeping all those details organized in one place and visualizing your story are really the two main things that we really shoot for.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's funny. And it's so true, right? Because I can hardly remember, like, the saying is I can't remember what I ate for dinner last night, what I had for breakfast. But especially nowadays with everything being so digital and on demand, that short term and long term memory just kind of get lost and just zapped out of you. So yeah, that's an important tool. And I think just kind of reiterating that this is a tool for writers. We can say it's an app, it's software, but emphasizing that it's a tool to help with the writing process. So, okay, now of course we have to talk about artificial intelligence. That's the next logical progression for this conversation, I think. Artificial intelligence, I'm going to put quotes. So I read your blog post announcing Plottr's AI future, one where you say that we need to embrace AI tools, but also make sure that our work has more humanity than ever in it. Is that an oxymoron? Like, how do you navigate that balance when determining new features to implement in Plottr?
Yeah, so I'm glad you put quotation marks around the AI, because what we are calling AI today really isn't. It's so trying not to get into the weeds too much. These large language models are really good at guessing the next word. and they're good enough that they really do sound like a human. But they're not artificial intelligence. There's no reasoning going on. And my favorite way to explain that is if you put in the puzzle where you have to get the boat across the stream, where there's like a farmer, a fox, chicken, and grain, and the boat's not big enough for all of them. If you ask it to solve that, but you say the boat is big enough to fit all of them, then 9 times out of 10, it will give you just the normal answer to that, which is totally wrong because they can all fit in the boat. So it's not reasoning. It's just guessing the next word because it's read that puzzle over and over from different sources. So I guess how do we manage that? I think there's a lot of feelings around AI, especially for writers, a lot of ethical questions and a lot of anger and worry. And look, I understand both sides. I'm really good at. I think that's one of my strengths is being able to see both sides. And I realize that yes, there are concerns. I mean, if something says it can replace humans, who wouldn't be concerned, right? But it's also just like every other technology that we've always been worried about, like typewriters and computers, word processors. Everybody's always freaked out with those kind of things, and eventually it just becomes the norm. So there's both sides of that, and I think that we, as far as like where we fall on that, we just love our audience without judgment on anything. Like we don't care how you go about becoming a writer, just writers are awesome. And we want to support writers, but there is a balance there with trying to create features that use AI and don't alienate people that are afraid or are really against it. And so one thing that we're trying to do is make it very clear what is and isn't AI, or AI in quotes, and when it's being used and when it isn't. And right now, there's nothing in Plottr that uses any AI, any LLM, doesn't call back to ChatGPT or anything like that. And when we do have those features, we'll make it very clear when it's being used and what is actually coming from that, and what is actually being sent to it, so you know that it's not training on your special story. People don't want their special story trained in these LLMs. And the other important thing is that it can't take away the creativity of a person. I think it shouldn't, I guess. You could put in a prompt and it could spit you out something. And as a human, if you just publish that, like the chances of it being good are not great right now. There are some tools that I've seen people use that make a pretty decent story. But most of the time, you'll have to have your hands in it as a human, writing it, editing it, fixing it. And so the features that we plan to build are going to be very much enabling your creativity, but not taking away your creativity, giving you options, giving you suggestions, but really putting the power in your hands. So I know I said a lot of things there. Do you have any questions about that?
Yeah, no. So I think that's interesting. Like I think the point about artificial intelligence just not being its own intelligence is a great. So like one example I can think of is if I have it summarize a news article or something, it'll summarize it using pretty much the exact same language that's used from the author. And if you start plugging in prompts saying like, oh, create your own unique voice, your own language, then it just falls apart because it's not trained to think independently and on its own. And a lot of times it just, you can clearly see it just regurgitates stuff that's already been written, right, from the source. So no, I think that's a great kind of point to make there. And then also generally your point too, like talking about people naturally are resistant to change, they're resistant to new technology, but when you look back in history, I think history hasn't looked too kindly on those that resist new technological change, right? So I think you kind of have to embrace it to a certain point. That said, you can still have some restrictions and exceptions, but I mean that's at least kind of my view on the situation.
Yeah, when typewriters came out, I've talked to a lot of writers actually, and some that were around at that time, and they said, yeah, when typewriters came out, everybody thought you're not a real writer if you write with a typewriter, Same thing with word processors. You're not a real writer if you write with a word processor. It's like that. No, you're a real writer if you write a story, no matter your.
Yeah. Well, and even the printing press too. Everyone was like freaking out about that, and I mean, and then it changed the world for I would say the better, but um, of course you just have to adapt like with anything. I think we're constantly evolving and adapting, and that kind of what separates. I don't know. It's a tough situation to navigate, but I think you guys have the right approach, and I want to leaning more into that, the artificial intelligence features and kind of roadmap. I guess what are some upcoming AI features or just features coming down the Plottr pipeline that you have in the works?
Yeah, so good question. We actually had some features that we were about to release earlier this year for people to help them brainstorm ideas, like when they get stuck or when uh, just if they want to explore different ideas. And we axed them. We decided not to ship them because it turns out they're too much of a toy and not useful. And so we don't want to just put something out there that, oh yeah, people are paying us for, but it's not actually that useful for writers. So when we decided not to release them, we kind of changed gears. And so we're talking internally, what does that mean? And we have kind of two paths that we're deciding. Uh, and one of those is like a more robust version of give me some ideas and let's dig into those and brainstorm more. And another one of those ideas is more of the, I don't even know how to say this, like Tony Stark's, what is Tony Stark's? Jarvis. Jarvis. So like almost like a Jarvis type assistant for writers. And we think that'll be really cool. Both of those would be really useful, but we're trying to decide which path to go down first and which is the right one for us. But we've got some other features we're working on, which I'll talk about, I'm sure a little bit later, that we think people are more excited about actually. And then we're going to kind of circle back to this AI and figure this out and do this. I'm kind of glad we didn't do it right away because there's been a couple of tools that have come out recently that are just really awesome in the AI space. And, if we'd come out first, then, maybe people wouldn't care about ours anymore. So I'm glad that we're taking it slow and making sure we're doing it the right way and making sure it's useful for people.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great approach. And there's like the arms race of everyone has to jump in on AI. But having the recognition to realize like, no, this isn't a good fit. We're kind of taking away maybe some of the creative uh, processes from our writers. I think that's good. Being able to recognize that and kind of change your plan on the fly, but in the moment, once you get more data, I think that's the perfect approach because this is such a new technology, and I don't think anyone has it figured out. You know,
It's moving so fast and it's so hard to keep up with. And that's one of the problems. It's like we get something ready and then there's better and better and better stuff. Yeah, it's so hard to keep up with. I know. So I'll actually plug somebody right now. The people at Future Fiction Academy, they are awesome at teaching about AI for writers. And I've been learning so much from them and they've helped me somewhat stay up on things and their tools are really powerful. So, but yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's like, it's moving so fast that we almost don't want to jump on that because it'll change in a few months. And I don't think because writers are not very technical by and large, I don't think they want to have to keep up with that. Like what is the best model to use? What are the right prompts to put in? How do I prompt engineer? I think they just want to write. So that's kind of the approach we're taking.
yeah, I think focusing around I think that's great. And then there's also such a kind of AI is increasingly leaving people with a sour taste in their mouth. Just the mention of it. I think it's already such a big topic point in everyday life now that people are just there's so many different opinions about it. It's almost better to kind of navigate it or rebrand. I mean, you have like Apple, like they just had their keynote earlier this week. They didn't even mention AI once. They have Apple Intelligence, which is essentially the same thing. But I think, and then you on the flip side, you have like Microsoft, where it's like they have the recent event and they mentioned AI like hundreds of times. So I think there's different philosophies. We'll see who kind of how it shapes out to be, but Yeah, no, I think that's a good approach. And I think focusing on some of the other features too, besides AI, is also great. Like I know that Plottr has a lot of integration capabilities with other writing apps, like Microsoft Word and Scrivener. So could you kind of talk about some of the integration apps?
Yeah, and so that's a really good point because, like I said earlier, there's so many writing softwares out there, and usually writers have this. In the tech world, we call it a stack. So the tech stack. I'm sure you're familiar with that, but that's how I think of it for writers. What's your writing tech stack? Like, so I use Plottr and Scrivener, and this for marketing, and that for Amazon ads, and so forth. So there's this whole kind of suite of tools that they have to use, and if we tried to do everything for every author, that would just be crazy, and it would be a terrible tool, I think. And so the opposite, like I mentioned before, is trying to be good at one thing or very few small things. That means that you have to play nice with the other tools that people are using to make it fit into their process. And so we've thought about that a lot. And I'd say Plottr does a decent job of it. But we could definitely do better. And it's something we're working on for the future of how to integrate better. But yeah, you can import and export to Word and Scrivener. And when you're able to export to a Word document, you can pretty much do anything with it at that point. Like you can convert that to a PDF, you can convert it to an ebook, you can upload it to a lot of these other tools that'll accept a Word document for actually writing the manuscript. Or you could write the manuscript right in Word. There's lots of different things you can do with that once you have that Word document. And so that's probably the big one, But the idea there of being able to import and export from those two is that no matter what order you do things in, because some writers like to write the story first and then go back and edit. And some people like to plan it out a lot and then write it. And of course, they'll still have to go back and edit it, right? But so we're making that flexible for whatever your process is. You can go either way. Start with the Word document or come with the Word document, get the Word document afterwards, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I know everyone has a different writing style. Like when I'm reviewing a smartphone, for example, I'll have like there'll be several key pillars to stick to, like build, display, battery life, cameras, and performance, or something. And then otherwise, I'll stick to those pillars. Otherwise, I'll just kind of stick to like a pantser style of writing with no outline and just kind of just let my thoughts flow. And so kind of having the support for those different writing styles and then the user interface is huge, right? So, along the lines of the interface, which I think is probably the most important element, if you ask me, what would you say? What were some recent updates that have been made to Plottr to improve the user experience and make the outlining process just more intuitive for users?
Yeah. So one big one recently was search and replace. I found that so many times I'm coming up with a story and I don't know the character's name yet, and so I'll just fill it in with like XXX, YYY, ZZZ, and then later trying to go back through everywhere and replace that when I finally figure out the character's name. So that's really made that more flexible, and it just helps you, find what you're looking for in the story when you have dozens of characters and 3 books in your series. It's going to be harder to find those details. So that search and replace has been one thing. Another thing that's really helped us is, well, we're working on this kind of newer version of the timeline where you're able to zoom in and out better and really be able to visualize your story in different ways and be able to see as much as you want or as little as you want. And so that's really going to help a lot of users to kind of visualize it in a different way.
Do you when you roll out a new change, is it do you have like quarterly updates, or is it like a monthly update cycle, or does it kind of just depend on when the feature is fully, all the bugs are worked out?
We've experimented with different things. We very much, since we're a small team, we're able to experiment a lot and figure out what is the best thing for our team and for our users. And because of that, we experiment with a lot of things. And we did have, I think it was 2 years ago, we had kind of a rigid schedule of every 6 weeks we're going to release something new. And it was a smaller thing, but it was on a schedule. And then other years we've tried, like, let's just release when something is ready. And we're kind of somewhere in the middle right now where we have this really cool process, I think, as a team where somebody will come up with an idea. We start building like a very early version of it, something that we can, so that everybody can see it. Because just an idea that I say or that I see in my head, but it doesn't exist in real life, it's hard to reason about it. It's hard to know if it's actually going to be useful to users. So we'll try and get like a very early version that we can play with, that we can see, that we can experience, and then we'll gather around as a team and we'll try it out. We'll use it. We'll see where it's good and where it, and it, so it comes a very collaborative, very experimental process. Okay, for next week, let's try it like this and this. And then we'll come back and we'll try it. And you know what? That wasn't a great idea. Let's go back to the first thing. And so now it's just like, it really depends on the feature. Some are easy and we know what we want and we can just get them out really quick. But a lot of things, especially with user experience, and especially with people that aren't very technical, you have to be very careful. Like even the wording matters, the where buttons are and all those kind of things. So you really got to think about your users and know your users to be able to make something that's 100% good for them. Because like you could put out stuff that's pretty good, but it's not fully there. But we really try and make it a really good experience. And we failed. We've definitely failed at that. But that's why everything's kind of an experiment with software.
Well, yeah, and it's a constant work in progress, and also like having a hard maybe deadline of like releasing, having a new release features every 6 weeks or something. Like, yeah, that could be great for the user, but it could also kind of box you guys in and kind of set yourself up for failure. So I think having the approach of when the feature's ready, it'll be out, it'll be tested, it'll be as kind of picked apart as it can be. And that's the most important part.
But we also can't like spend 2 years on one feature, because that would kill us, both emotionally and probably to our audience, like, yes, this thing is coming, this can't 2 years later, so we've got to be reasonable about biting off a good chunk that's actually valuable, but not spinning our wheels for 2 years until we get every little pixel right, so it's a balance.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. Now, can you? I think you talked about this a little bit. Can you talk some more about the various templates that Plottr provides to help writers structure their stories?
Yeah, the templates are really awesome because I was surprised how powerful they are. When I started doing templates, I didn't realize just how useful they would be. And I thought it was just kind of like, yeah, I've got this idea, we'll put in some templates, but it turns out they're extremely useful for people. And the other reason they're great is because I didn't make them, in the sense that it's not my writing wisdom that is in these templates, because I'm still learning the process. I'm still trying to make a best-selling book, and I'm still trying to learn to be a good writer. So this comes from people that have written hundreds of books and that have been very successful. And so it's all their knowledge encapsulated into this is how you actually do it. Instead of just like the theory of their book or whatever, this is nitty gritty. This is how you're going to write it. And they're really powerful for different groups of people, because if you're an experienced writer, the templates, you kind of already know, like, so we have, here, the hero's journey, we have a mystery one, so the 12-step mystery formula. We have some horror ones. We have romancing the beat, which is a really popular one. There's screenplay ones. There's story engine, story circle, story genius. There's a bunch that have story in them, and so we have and then there's ones for characters. They're like personality tests, like Enneagram, the DISC personalities, Myers-Briggs. We've got a Dungeons and Dragons character sheet. We've got a online dating profile character sheet type template. And so it's really powerful. And what I was going to say is if you're familiar with one of those systems for writing a story or one of those structures, then it just speeds up your process so much. But if you're learning, it gives you a guiding hand, like holds your hand and helps you and teaches you how to write your story and how to make it deeper and more meaningful. And so I was amazed at how powerful they are, but they really are. They help so much.
That's great. Yeah, that's such a powerful tool, and it really goes along with what you were saying about how your software is so adaptable for different storytelling formats, genres, and writing styles. I think that's great. I want to play around with those different templates. After this, I'm gonna have to download the Plottr and play around with it some more.
Yeah. There's a lot of templates in there. Don't let that scare you. Just kind of choose one and go, and then you'll learn them little by little. We're trying to make a better way to surface the ones that are going to be valuable for people that, the one that you're looking for, kind of. So
Mhm.
we're working on that.
Yeah, maybe I can suggest one for like a YouTube script writing tech product review or
Oh,
something.
yeah, cool. Yeah.
Now, what kind of support do you offer to help users maximize the use of the platform?
That's a great question, because a lot of software, um, either you'll email in and you'll hear back in a week, or you never hear back, or it's just a canned answer. But that's one thing that I learned from other companies that I worked from, that customer support is really, really important if you really want to make fans. And that's one of the things we want. We don't want just people, paying us money and they never write that book. We want fans because it's actually changed their life and changed their career. And support is really, I think, where you make those fans. And so we've got this awesome husband and wife team who live in Oregon, and I love them, and they're so good to people. I consider myself a very friendly person, but they are like 10 times that. I think they're so nice and so friendly to people. They take care of everybody. And we try to respond. I think it's within a day, depending on, if we get slammed or something with a bunch of messages, but I think within a day they'll respond, sometimes even faster. And so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is like training, or like, how do I use this thing? And so we've got a YouTube channel that has both quick 2 minute, like, how do I do this one thing in Plottr, and also deep dives of, here's an hour long, this one author has this kind of unique way of using Plottr, so let's dive into that and see how they use Plottr, because maybe that's the way that works for you. It's a very flexible tool. And so, there's all sorts of that breadth of really quick, but also a deeper dive if you want to, so you can learn how to use all the aspects of Plottr.
Hmm. Well, shout out to Oregon as my home state. So,
Yeah, they're actually in Portland.
oh,
They're
they are.
they're in
Oh, nice.
Salem, so it's like really close, I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, 40 minutes away or so. But
Okay.
yeah, that's pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, and it's so true that customer service is can really make or break a company. It's like
Yeah.
when I evaluate, I've told this example before in the past, but like when I was looking at like solar companies, a lot of like my decision came down to customer service. Because when you have this thing like on your roof for 20 years or something, you want to make sure like if anything goes wrong, you can call somebody, you're going to get a person, you're going to get your help, get your issue solved. So having that reassurance, and then just I can say, just talking to you, it seems like you're genuinely care about making a better service and being receptive to users. And I mean, that's what it's all about, really. So
Yeah, so many of our feature ideas and things that are good about Plottr have come from users. Like, so many things, we always listen to user. We can't like do everything that every user wants. That's definitely a balancing act. But we really do seek feedback and make it better based on what people tell us.
yeah, it's great for R&D and brainstorming new features and UI improvements. So I totally see that. We're coming down to our last couple of questions. We talked about Plottr's AI future and the various UI improvements. Are there any upcoming features or developments in Plottr that you're just really excited to talk about and want to share with us?
Yeah. So the biggest one, I'll state that one first, because I'm most excited about that, is we're building a family tree feature into Plottr. And I think that's huge, because no other software for writers that I know of does this in a way that writers tell me is good. There's other ones that do, or can make it possible, or are able to do it, but we're trying to make like a very simple, very user friendly, good looking family tree feature. And man, we get that request so much. I think writers are really going to love being able to put out the family tree of their characters. Well, not so. There's two aspects kind of to that. One, for themselves, to keep things organized, but also to be able to show their readers, like, hey, here's the family tree, like on their website or something. Being able to put that there, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. Huh. That's cool. Okay, so you got the family tree. Anything else?
Yeah. So There's one that we're working on that I'm still figuring out how to explain it. It's like there's kind of a missing step in between visually seeing your story and writing your story. It's a feature that'll help you with that middle step of, now that you have the different threads of your story planned out, how exactly do they fit in a scene? You know, like taking one scene at a time and like, where are the threads going to go, and where do they actually weave into this scene? So we're working on that. And then the timeline that I told you about, being able to like zoom in and zoom out better, where it's like a Google Maps where you can pan around your story. That's going to be cool. The other one, I guess, that we're working on is offline mode. We're making it so if you go off into a cabin somewhere and somewhere off the grid, or you're flying to a writing conference, which happens a lot, and you're on the plane, you don't want to pay for Wi-Fi, then you're able to use it offline very easily. That's something that a lot of writers do, and it's already possible. So we have two ways of using Plottr, either the fully offline version or the fully online version. And so we're trying to make it so even if you're on the online version, you can use it offline whenever you want to. So.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So you got quite a few exciting features in the pipeline. That's exciting. Awesome. My last question for you is, where can writers, users learn more about Plottr and its features? And then just where can people get in touch with you and your team?
Yeah, so plottr.com, and Plottr spelled a little funky. It's Plottr, no E in there, .com. And then also youtube.com/Plottr. We have a ton of videos on there. We also have a Facebook group, like a community where people ask questions and like, hey, how do you do this in Plottr? Or what do you think the best way to do this is? And it's a fairly active community. And I don't know if it's just facebook.com/groups/Plottr or something like that. I don't have the link to that one, but those are probably the three biggest places that you can find us and learn about us. And the support you wanted, to get in touch with our team is just support@plottr.com. Just feel free to email us and we'll reach out or we'll answer.
Well, and I got to shout out, you got a Substack and you're an author yourself. So if you guys are curious about Cameron's writings, just Google him. I'm sure you'll find it.
Yeah, it's just CameronSutter.com will take you right to my Substack. I write about AI and writing, more with the human feeling, or at least that's what I'm going for. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Well, we need more of that, I think. So I think you're doing a great job, and just thank you so much for all the insights you shared with us and taking the time out of your day to sit with us and joining us on the SourceForge podcast. So I appreciate it, Cameron.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So glad to be here.
Well, thank you all for listening to the SourceForge podcast. I'm your host, Bo Hamilton. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all of our upcoming B2B software related podcasts. I'll talk to you in the next one.